Good afternoon, everybody, and very, very warm welcome indeed to this conversation with our senior tutor. I am Judith Hillier. I'm the College Vice President, and we're delighted that you're able to join here. Yasmin, I can't currently see you.
I'm here.
You're
and
here.
I have my camera on, so hopefully I
can see you now.
the park. Soon. It says I'm spotlighted. My video is highlighted. Does that mean you can see me?
We can see you beautifully now.
Good, excellent. Hello, everyone.
Fabulous. Okay, so the way that we're gonna start this is I'm gonna ask Yasmin a few questions, and then what we'd very much like you to do is if you have questions or things that you'd like to ask her, it would be fabulous if you do. And if those go into the chat box, that would be fabulous. For those of you who are not perhaps used to Teams, the chat function, if you see there's a toolbar at the top, if you're using the downloaded version of Teams, that you'll see a little speech bubble sign, and that's, if you click on that, you can then type a message in on the right hand side. I'm conscious that people are just sort of coming in, but it's going to be quite a short little chat, so we are going to crack on with the first question. So I'm going to start off, Yasmin, by asking you a question, and I think this is something that all of us really struggle with when we first come to Oxford, is what is a college? What is the role of an Oxford college? Why do we have them? Okay.
Well, it's a very good question, Judith. It's a very good question. I mean, I think, as everybody knows, Oxford is a very old institution, as is Cambridge. And so the university evolved out of monastic settlements. I should say I'm a historian by training, so I can't help but think back in time to the origins of the colleges. So the university evolved out of monastic centres where people ate together, men, at the time it was men, ate together and studied together and learned together and also had accommodation. So over the years, as the university has evolved, we've retained those kind of communities of education and learning. And Kellogg, obviously being a much newer college, only 30 years old, didn't come out of that tradition, but it means that the university has retained that idea. And the great thing about it is it means that it's a space for dining, for living, for eating, for conversation, but for community, and community outside just your subject. So the big emphasis that we often place on colleges is the sense that it's a place to meet other people who aren't doing the same subject as you, and who aren't necessarily interested in the same questions, but where you have a fellowship of studying and of learning together. And so you learn from people in that kind of collective community, and that makes it quite different to other universities. And the other thing which I think is important about the college system is it gives you a space outside of a world where people are examining your work or interested in what you're actually doing, but to focus on you as in a holistic way as a person. So ideally the college also is a place where you get support, and where you find a welfare support, and also where there are other people who can look out for you other than just the people who teach you. And in the case of Kellogg, for instance, the advisor system is an important aspect of that, the idea of having an advisor who is based in the college.
Yeah.
Have I missed anything, Judith? Have I missed anything?
That sounds, thank you very much. I know from my own experience, that's one of the things I most enjoy about college, is those conversations that you might have over lunch with somebody where they're working in something, a completely different field, and actually you find quite a lot of commonality, and actually there's quite an interesting discussion. And sometimes that can help you to look at your own work in a new way, which is exciting. Actually, that perspective is richer. Now, I introduced you as the senior tutor. I'm the vice president. We have all these titles. What does a senior tutor actually do? Are you just the oldest one of us, Yasmin, or is there another way of defining?
Yeah, I mean, of course, as everybody will be learning, the terminology in Oxford just takes a while to get to grips with, and there are these strange phrases and terms used for so many different things. So as senior tutor, so I should say, first of all, I'm an associate professor of history. I teach history, and that's my job in the university, and I I supervise students. But in the college, we are fellows of the college. So fellows are academics who are post holders. They teach in the university, but they make up the fellowship, and that means we have responsibility for running the college effectively, for looking after the day-to-day operations of the college, as well as sort of oversight of the college. So senior tutor is a role which rotates every few years, and I'm in the hot seat at the moment. Some of you may, if you're not new, you may remember Professor Carl Hennigan. He was senior tutor up until last year, and then I took over last academic year. And senior tutor is a fellow who has responsibility for the academic progress of the students primarily. So that's the main way that you would come into contact with me, I think, is if there was something in your academic progress, say you needed to suspend, some of you are new, you won't be thinking about this yet, but say you need an extension on a piece of work, or you needed to stop studying altogether, or heaven forbid, you run into an accident or an emergency of some kind, then I am the person who would be looking out to make sure that you are able to complete your course, but that we are able to support you if you need to take time out in some way. So that's the main way that I would probably come into contact with you. But the other thing that senior tutor does is, along with the president and the dean, we are the kind of interface with the rest of the university, because there are all these colleges dotted around, and we have to coordinate and speak to each other and collaborate. So I go to a lot of meetings with other senior tutors or other parts of the university to coordinate what other colleges are doing, and to compare notes, and also to represent Kellogg. So I represent Kellogg at the university level in some ways. It's also just somebody on the fellowship who is sort of available and around. I think I sort of public face of the fellowship, sort of in terms of liaising with students and with staff. We have an amazing staff at Kellogg who are running the offices on a day-to-day basis, and the kind of connecting point in a way are the fellows who have roles such as myself. So usually in a usual year, I would definitely see you around at lunch and dinners, and I still hope I will do during this academic year. But I'm going to have office hours online this year on Teams, and those will be circulated to you, but it's going to be on a Thursday from 1 till 4, and just have an open, you can either make an appointment to meet me online or in person, but also you can just sort of drop in if you see that it's during those office hours. You can just drop in, and if you have questions or queries, just to try and sort of be available in a different way other than being around in college.
And I'd urge people to make use of that, because I know my advisees, for example, always find it really helpful to have somebody else that they can go to who's not their supervisor, who doesn't teach on their course, somebody else to go and ask for advice about, or sometimes perhaps share difficulty with, and that could, as you say, Yasmin, as in your senior tutor role, that can be something that could be really, really helpful for people to do that.
Yeah, I should say, I mean, the staff in the academic office are sort of
phenomenal
on a day-to-day basis, running this incredible operation. You'll have already come into contact with them through admissions process, but through all your stages of matriculation, through that whole academic journey of being at Kellogg, all the way through to graduation, the academic office will be sort of seeing you through that, and Sarah O'Brien in particular, as the academic administrator for Kellogg, has a very important role in that, and she's got an incredible wealth of knowledge about different kinds of resolutions to different issues and problems that you might face as a student along the way. So there's a team there, but it's just that you're very welcome to get in touch, and we do encourage you to get in touch either with your advisors or with academic office and with myself along the way, and one way or another we will sort of try and be there for you to resolve if you hit roadblocks.
Yeah, and I think I would always say the importance is to go and ask for advice. I know, a number of times over the years people say try and solve things on their own, they struggle through, and actually there are very few problems that we've not met before, and there's very few situations that we haven't helped students in, and I think there's a huge amount of expertise within the college and within the university. So we've talked a little bit about sort of things that a college does, that a senior tutor does, and every Oxford college has that. But we're in Kellogg, and we think we're amazing, we're special. But how would you describe us? We're young, but what's special about us as a college?
Well, Kellogg is young. It's 30 years old. We've just been celebrating the 30th anniversary of Kellogg. And I think that's a massive advantage in the Oxford system, because it means the college is still evolving and growing and changing, literally, with new buildings going up, like the Hub, which is a space, a social space and a cafe space right in the centre of college. I mean, I remember that being built just a few years ago. So there's new things happening. We're a college that grew out of a historical engagement with continuing education and with part-time learners. And so we have a particular commitment to part-time and to students who are coming back to studying at different stages of their life, I suppose. Although we have a full-time community too, and we have full-time students too, there is that historical link, which means that we understand and are used to working with part-time and mature students, and that's very ordinary for us. And one of the things that I love in Kellogg, when you go into lunch, you can't tell who's a fellow or who's a student, because there's people from every generation, and there's no high table that you would have in some colleges where the fellows sit apart, sort of lording it above the rest of the students. In Kellogg, there's a great sense of equality, I think, and a great sense of, there's not the same hierarchical distinctions that you might find in some Oxford colleges. I think it is genuinely a less hierarchical place, just because we respect the fact that a lot of our students already have very impressive careers and are adults and are out in the world doing their jobs already before they come back to studying. So it's a less hierarchical place. The other thing which I've noticed I've been at Kellogg 8 years now, is the commitment to the environment really developing, and the commitment to sustainability, which obviously everybody pays lip service to everywhere. But I think Kellogg is really demonstrating that and proving that through particular commitment with students and also staff who are engaged in doing that. And we've just last year had a new sustainability fellow as well, who will be Dr. Sandy Byrne, and she's taking a role in that. So we do the Hub is a passive house, which means it's carbon neutral building, and that was the first one in Oxford. And there is a real kind of sense that the college does want to demonstrate leadership as a green college. So I think those are some of the things. I've been in 3 Oxford colleges actually, but I really like Kellogg. I really like Kellogg, and I think Oxford sort of does this thing where everybody thinks their college is the best. I think everybody will kind of have different things that they like about their college, and they're all very different. And it's worth saying, it doesn't preclude also going to those beautiful colleges that have such an ancient sort of foundation. There's nothing to stop you going to Evensong at Christ Church, or going and looking at around. Well, at the moment, of course, you should be careful with COVID. I mean, check first. But usually it's possible to go and see these other parts of Oxford. You're not precluded from that. But it's when you get back to Kellogg, that should be your kind of home in the university.
Excellent, thank you. It'd be nice if I don't know if anybody else has any questions that they might particularly like to ask Yasmin. If you do, then please do put them into the chat. I mean Yasmin and I could probably talk about the college for endlessly, but I think we're conscious that you may have come to this with a particular thing that you wanted to find out about, or something that you were really interested in knowing a bit more about, or something you were puzzled about. So if you do have anything that you would like to ask, then please do so, and we will do our very best to answer the questions. We don't pretend to know everything, but if there are questions, we would very much like to see that. I can't see anybody typing at the moment, and I can
see some hands up.
Aha, we've got some hands. Okay, so where? Ooh. Can you see a hand up? Yes, right, I can see one question's come up. So we've been told to ask how we Yasmin, how are you going to let people know when your office hours
So there's an email coming out from academic office shortly, but it will be I will just be on Teams. I will be online from 1 to 4 on a Thursday. I tried to pick a time which meant that if you're abroad, you might still be awake, but no, I hope that works for most people. But otherwise, you can email and just arrange a separate time to meet online.
Brilliant. We've had a question about going to classes that are not on your course or on your pathway. How do you think we might, what would you suggest for people to do in that particular situation?
It's interesting. I mean, Oxford runs, obviously there's your course, but there are also lectures in all subjects, and in a normal year you would be able to go physically to lectures at the exam schools, even if you weren't studying in that subject area. So I think some subject areas are opening up their lectures to non students who aren't on those courses, but I think if you have a particular interest, probably, what would you say, Judith? I think the best thing probably be to contact the lecturer or the course director.
But I think broader than that, each department offers quite a rich program of seminars, and many of those are open to the public, and a lot of those will be online. So my own department, for example, has a seminar every Monday afternoon which will be online, and I think if there's a particular field that you're really interested in, go and see what is offered on that, and that may be more interesting to you than a class that is designed for a particular course. So I think it's do a little bit of looking around. So Joanne, I hope that answers that question for you. But a question, oh sorry guys.
No, I was just going to add, I think the thing about Oxford is because it's very decentralized, people often find it very hard to get a grip on information when they arrive, and that's very normal. It's not that there is one central place that you can find. I mean, there is Oxford Talks, which is a good website which does show a lot of the talks and seminars that are going on. So I would recommend that. But it's worth looking at the different faculty or departmental websites for the different subjects that you're interested in. And I'm afraid there is a lot of, you sort of have to take the initiative to search and hunt around yourself. And it's not that you're missing some wonderful centralized place. It just doesn't exist. It's unfortunately, it just is the nature of information in the institution that there is a lot of sort of disparate information in different places, and so online too, that is also the case. The same way our buildings are widely distributed, information is not always very well centralized online, but Oxford Talks is a very good place to find talks and online seminars. For people interested in humanities, Torch, which is the Oxford Research Centre in the Humanities, has a lot of very good things like a sort of lunchtime book club, different events. So have a look at Torch and their website. I don't want to go on too long. But,
we've got a couple of other questions. So one person is asking when they're going to be told who their college advisor is. So we're not quite into North Week yet. So
that is being worked on right at the moment, and the emails will go out in the next fortnight. They're going out in the next fortnight, so you will get an email. And for those of you who haven't heard much about the advisor system yet, everybody is allocated an advisor who is a member of the college, a sort of a non-student member of the college, but not in the same subject as you, probably in a sort of allied cognate subject, so similar sort of subject area, but not the same subject. And that is your personal advisor, and they will usually initiate contact, or you're very welcome to email them just to kind of get in touch.
And then we've had a question from Kayo, who's asking about visiting other colleges and eating at other colleges. So that's a tricky one. I think there's an answer for this term, and then there's the answer we'd like it to be in more normal times, isn't there, Yasmin?
Yeah, normally we would say, you can go as a guest, but I'm afraid at the moment there's very strict rules about not visiting other colleges. I was probably too hasty to encourage you to go around other colleges, because at the moment you would need to be a member of those colleges, and colleges being very strict about booking in for lunches and things when they're offering catering offerings. So I think at the moment, no, but usually, and we hope as things start to open up, you would be able to go as a guest of a student or a fellow or somebody who's a member of that college. You can't just go in to eat in them.
No. But I think, just to reassure you, I think over all the years I've been a member of college as a fellow for 10 years now, and in all those years everybody who's come as a guest to us has always said our food is better than the rest of the colleges. So you're not missing out on anything by not eating in other places.
That's true. You'll get better paintings on the wall in other places, but you won't get better food. I think that's fair to say. You know, it's very impressive. It's lovely to go and eat in some of those places just to see the environments and so on. But actually, in terms of the food, they can be quite yeah. Well, let's say Kellogg has the edge in that respect.
Yeah, and we've had a really useful point there from Hannah, just pointing out that actually, if you go onto departmental social media platforms, there's a lot of events advertised on there, but departments are also very good at sort of tweeting reports and things that our academics may have recently written. So if there's things you particularly wanted to look at that, which is a question. We've had a question from Seema asking about getting into events on the Freshers Week calendar and which website that we're meant to access. So the Kellogg website will talk about what we have on our own Freshers Week events provision, won't we, Yasmin?
Yeah, there is I mean, I hope you've all seen the kind of the homepage for the Freshers Week that you click through and you go into that for different events. Obviously, it's been running for a week now. The welcome weeks, but there'll be more on that. But I'm not quite sure, Seema, which other events you're referring to, or how what sort of issue you're running into there. But
should I speak?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so some of the events that are there on the calendar of events, there are really good ones, but I haven't been able to find the link to join or register. So I know that there's a separate link for the MCA. There are separate links for other hosted events, but a few specific ones I could probably just open the calendar and explain. But unfortunately, I don't have it on me.
I think the best thing would be Emma Heath, who's here, has been coordinating the welcome weeks, and perhaps you could just be in touch with her directly, or she might be able to advise us after this meeting on exactly the issue that you're having there. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And somebody's put up an MCR links PDF as well. Thank you, Leah. That's really helpful. Okay. Excellent. Are there any other questions that anybody wanted to ask? I think we've answered all the ones that have come up so far.
Yeah, I guess it's just to say really also welcome to everybody, and we do recognise, of course, that this is a very strange and challenging year, but we really hope that you have a good experience of being at Kellogg and at Oxford, and you know, do feel that you can get in touch. Could you give an example of when we could meet with Yasmin Viss, our own advisor? So just seen that in the chat.
Thanks, Justin.
So usually your advisor would be best placed to support if you had a query about, for instance, if you were considering needing to get an extension on a piece of work, an advisor would be a good person to talk to, maybe talk through the different pros and cons of doing that, or why you might want an extension or need an extension. Or if you were finding that your supervisor was not being very responsive, or you felt like you weren't sure about something to do with how your work was going, you know, those are the sorts of things you might want to talk to your advisor about. I mean, I guess Sarah, Brian, and myself sort of step in when it becomes more complex and complicated, or if there's a more significant major issue where somebody's really sort of struggling, or there's a very sort of important thing which can't be easily resolved for an advisor. So we're another port of call in that way. But so I don't want to dissuade you from contacting me, but I think in the first instance, you know, advisors can deal with a lot of day-to-day business, and have often seen that before themselves, and often closer to your subject area as well. They often kind of know exactly what you might be encountering.
Yeah, so probably go to your advisor first, and then your advisor will sort of say, actually, I think this is something that perhaps needs to be discussed with Yasmin. We've had a question from Maggie asking about formal dinners. Yes, this is a real shame, because lunches you're able, I think it was an email came out yesterday, wasn't there, the communications email about how we book in for lunches for this term, but that we're not opening for formal dinners this term because of the numbers of people that involves, and it usually involves guests. And so I think it's as part of the provision that we've had to put in place in order to make sure we can open the building safely for staff and for students, is that decision has been made that we're not able to have the formal dinners this term. My understanding, Yasmin, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's right at the moment. But the information has gone around about how to book in for lunches at least. Yes. So do avail yourself of that if you are in Oxford, or if you're coming into Oxford for later on in the term, do book in. Yeah. But at the moment there aren't any formal dinners scheduled. I mean, we did have quite a fun time having an online formal dinner before the start of term for the Gordy, which involved the chef at Kellogg, John, circulating recipes and instructing people to cook them, and Judith herself helped prepare the dessert online. So you know, that we might be able to do some other events like that, sort of cooking or yeah, social online social events. But at the moment, we have to follow the government's guidelines. Yes. And the rule of 6 is now really means that only households can interact, and more than 6 people shouldn't really be interacting. Yes. And so that limits our capacity to put on social events.
We've had a question about whether there will always be online options. I think this is possibly a question more for your department, Hannah, but certainly my understanding is that certainly within our own department we are making provision so that people can engage with course activities that things will either be recorded or that they will be able to dial in via Teams in order to access the face-to-face teaching. And of course I think many of us are going for a blended approach, and so much of what we are offering is already online as well as the face-to-face teaching. I don't know, Yasmin, if you want to come in from your perspective.
Yeah, the same. I mean, in our department in continuing education, everything is either being offered completely online or in a mixture of in person with online availability for those who are vulnerable or shielding or unable because of travel restrictions to come. And I think that is probably going to continue to be the case through at least this term and next term. And I think for those of you having supervisions for doctoral or master's work, that can be arranged either in person, because if you're in Oxford, you can still have an in-person supervision with your supervisor, but similarly that can be done online, and I think it works well either way. So you can meet in person or online.
And yes, and your supervisor will be expecting to have, you know, individual discussions with you as well, which would be good. Matriculation question. That the possibility of in-person events in Hilary or Trinity terms. Is it possible to not matriculate this term and wait for that face-to-face event? Yasmin, what do you think about that one?
Now that is a good question, and there are probably people here who know more about that than me, but I think, as far as I understand it, if you've been asked and requested to come to matriculation through the online matriculation this term, then that's what you should be doing. I know you would love to attend matriculation in person, and of course it is, you know, it's just unfortunate, but we really do want people to kind of comply with coming to the online matriculation, because it's really kind of, matriculation is such a funny word, and you might have had it explained to you elsewhere, but it's an important ritual for you're beginning your life as part of university. And so ideally it happens in your first term and when you're actually starting your course.
I think also just to add into that, there is always the matriculation ceremony within Hilary and Trinity terms, but it's much smaller number for much more restricted ceremony. And so if you just, you know, the chance of getting a place in those matriculation ceremonies is quite low. And I would be very dubious as to whether those do happen in person. I think it is highly likely that all matriculation this whole academic year will take place in absence. And I think that's corroborated. There's another comment in there. I think just to add into that as well is that if you haven't matriculated, you can't graduate. So you do have to do one before the other, and you don't want to hit into that.
I mean, I think the bottom line is please comply with what Academic Office asks to do to matriculate and do it this term, because I think the chances of it happening in person this year seem
very remote.
Very remote. Yeah.
Got a question coming here asking about saying that their house isn't full. There's only 3 of the 7 of them there. When's everybody else turning up?
Well, we're not into term yet.
No, we're not.
People will start to arrive. I mean, they will. We do expect it to be full. To answer your question, and people will start to arrive in weeks. And even you know, some people might, just because of travel restrictions and things. Usually, everybody is here right at the beginning of North Week. But this year, you know, things are a little bit more in flux, because some people, for instance, might have had issues getting flights or traveling, but we do expect the accommodation to be full. Yeah.
There's a question here about having some sort of substitute ceremony, even if they matriculate in October officially with the in absentia matriculation, to have some sort of ceremony later on. And I think at the moment we probably don't know the answer to that one, because I think so much depends on when we as a college are able to go back to having large scale events. I think we're very conscious of sort of last year's cohort and this year's cohort, and there are things that we would like to do, but until we're in a place where we can start to make proper plans and concrete arrangements, I think it's very difficult on what that will look like at the moment. I don't know, Yasmin, if you want to.
Well, I think we're really conscious of the fact that we want you to be able to enjoy celebrating, for instance, probably seems a long way away for some of you, but graduation, and having events that are celebratory, where you can dress up and so on. But it just at the moment we're just not able to run those events. We wouldn't be complying with the kind of the university or the government if we did. So we're not able to. We are conscious of the fact that we do want people to be able to celebrate and enjoy these things, and we'd like to put them on as soon as we can.
Yes. The date for matriculation this year, is that Saturday? Is that the 10th or the 17th of October? Which day is the Vice Chancellor doing her?
I don't know at the moment off the top of my head.
It's the 17th.
Yeah.
It's the 17th. So it's the online bit is going to be the address that the Vice Chancellor would normally do. It's not going to be necessarily all of the normal parts of the ceremony, but it's Saturday the 17th of October, which would have been the normal matriculation date for a majority of people. Okay, so I hope that answers your question there, Shane. Okay, any more questions? I'm conscious that we have got to the end of the time. We said it would be half an hour, and we've definitely. I'm hoping that it's been helpful to answer these questions, and I haven't seen any more pop into the chat. But thank you very much indeed for coming to participate in this. Thank you, Yasmin, for all of that really helpful information and all of those insights. I think I hope that's been really helpful to all of you. And I think wish you all a very best wishes for your studies with us. We will be in and around lunches at Kellogg, and we very much hope to see some of you. So we'll be talking with you later on in the year, no doubt.
Thanks a lot, Judith. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.